Hello there, welcome to Discovered Hacks. I'm Torstein. Last week I got an email from a young developer, and he was just starting out in his new job, and he would really like to use Emacs, but he was concerned that he would spend too much time tinkering around with Emacs that he wouldn't be able to deliver on. And this resonated really well with me, because I remember when I started out in my first job, and especially in my second job, and I thought I would like to share that, and that perhaps would be useful for some people. So the story goes, in 2004, I started out in my second job as a consultant. And in 2004, running Linux on your laptop wasn't exactly easy, especially if you wanted wireless to work, especially if you wanted to do a presentation with an external projector. So things you couldn't take for granted that it would all work. And at that, I wanted to run Debian. It would have been easy if I had run Mandrake or SUSE or something more user-friendly at the time, but I wanted to run Debian. And added to that, in my company, everyone was using IntelliJ and loved that, and I wanted to use Emacs. And yeah, it was a fairly hostile environment to run these two things, and I was given flack for running Emacs, and I was forced to run IntelliJ officially, and then unofficially I was using Emacs most of the time. So what I did was that I ensured that everything worked in Windows, all the tools, everything I needed, and everything, of course, ran in Linux. And then in Linux and Windows, I ensured that IntelliJ was all set up. I knew all the shortcuts in IntelliJ. I was proficient in IntelliJ. And then I spent time, whenever I had the time, to set up Emacs. And then I configured Emacs to automatically load any file changes from the file system. So that means when I edited the files in IntelliJ, or these days perhaps that would have been Visual Studio Code, but IntelliJ is still really, really good for Java. Whenever I edited code there and then went back to Emacs, I would have the changes immediately there. And the other way around, if I edited files in Emacs and switched to IDEA with Alt+Tab, the changes would be there immediately, and that's the default in IntelliJ. It reloads whatever changes have been done on the file system. And the second thing I did was all tinkering with Linux or Emacs. I did that in the evening, after work hours. So I didn't want the customer, who was paying good money for my time, to kind of pay the Emacs tax, or however you want to phrase it. And so I started out, and that takes the pressure off, right? So if you have one stack that works, so you can produce and deliver what your client wants, and then in the evening or in your spare time, if you will, you can then set up Emacs, whatever other setup you would like, the desired state. And then what happened over time, over perhaps a couple of months, I was proficient in Emacs and got Linux up and running the way it should be. And then I used IntelliJ less and less and less. And an interesting anecdote, in 2004, 2005, in 1 year, I had not used the Windows partition at all. So I had left it there just in case Linux didn't work. But in 1 year, I hadn't used it. But it was a good backup. It was like really nice to have. Rest be assured you have an option that you can boot into that will just work in any environment for any client and so on. So those are my 2 tips to developers, consultants starting out. Ensure that you have one stack that will always work, and then you have a stack that is your desired state that you would like to use, and maintain that and get it working, but do it in the evening, so that your client or your colleagues don't suffer because you want to use this. And then, of course, as time goes by, they will benefit that you have invested this time. But when you're fresh out, and then you want to prove that you can deliver, and then it's important to deliver on your promise as soon as possible. So those are my 2 tips. Hope it's useful, and thank you for watching. See you next time.